I have a lot of thoughts about the new He-Man movie, or Masters of the Universe, as it's actually called. Some of these thoughts, you'll probably see coming. You can probably guess them. Others, probably not. But what I will say to start out, if you are someone who grew up with this 1980s cartoon and you were a fan of it, I think there's going to be a lot in this movie for you to like. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Everybody else, we'll see. Okay, so Masters of the Universe. It is directed by Travis Knight and it stars Nicholas Galitzine as Adam, Prince Adam of Eternia, also known as He-Man. If you have not seen the trailers, this movie is a little different than what you may have thought you were getting from the cartoons. Because the opening act one of this movie starts on Eternia. We see a young child, Adam, as he's undergoing training, to eventually take over the crown and be the man that his father, the king, wants him to be. His land is attacked by Skeletor, and in order to protect him, his mother sends him to Earth. And we spend a lot more time there than I thought we would with the adult Adam as he's grown up in this world where he keeps talking about Eternia and everyone tells him he's crazy, but he keeps talking about it, trying to find a way home. Eventually, he does get there, and of course, he has to save the world from the evil of Skeletor. That's the basic gist of our movie. Now, I got to admit, when I first saw these trailers, I thought I knew exactly what this movie was going to be. I thought it was going to be, generic action superhero movie that was going to be just mid throughout and might have some moments that made me go, ooh, that was cool. But mainly, I really thought I just wasn't going to like it. And just, for, oh wow, I just had a brain fart, but the word I was looking for was background. For some background, I am not a huge He-Man fan. I grew up when it was in syndication, but I was way more into the Thundercats and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and those type of shows from the 80s. He-Man it was a little too silly for me, just a little too much. I just could never get into it. But I liked it enough, and I really did enjoy the short-lived 2002 series. Anyway, my thoughts about this being a generic action film were, somewhat right, but this movie surprised me because it is not an action film at its core. At its core, it is a comedy, and it is very, very funny. They really succeeded in that aspect. Like, this movie is full of jokes and they land more times than they don't land. My theater was cracking up, and I gotta say, it was a very, very pleasant surprise. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Let's talk about the likes and dislikes. Now we're gonna start with what I didn't like because I like to end on a positive note. And man, what I didn't like, it's hard because it's so interwoven with things that I did like. Like, I didn't like a lot of the action, but there is one action scene in my head that I was like, okay, that was all right. I didn't like a lot of the pacing, how it would speed up and slow down certain times, and speed up and slow down certain times. It wasn't really consistent. But those times when it did slow down, I appreciated what was happening on screen. So it's hard for me to talk about that as a pure dislike, but I'll get through it. So yeah, first off, man, the action is it's either generic or it is bad. There's no great action scene in this movie that will make you be like, wow, this is amazing. And I actually think that's going to be a detriment for some of the younger audience members. Something else I'll get to in a little bit. I was totally out of it in the first 10 minutes of the movie. I was like, wow, this is going to be really bad. Because you're seeing stuff like people getting stabbed, no blood. I mean, it's PG-13, but still, come on. You don't have to show a whole bunch of gore, to make a scene land, right? But you see people getting shanked and nothing happens. Shotgun blast to the chest, nothing happens. People getting hit with swords, and the sword doesn't actually cut through anything. It just hits them, and then they fall down. So I'm just like, this is really bad choreography. It goes from that to, there are certain points where, when He-Man is fighting and he uses his fists, the choreography gets a little bit better. Some hits really land and you're like, oh, wow, that's awesome. But really, the fighting in this movie is its biggest letdown. And it's accompanied by the CG. Eternia is just, a fantastical world. And I think they did a good job of bringing what an Eternia would look like to life. But with CG, I have like three tiers. Either it's just seamless and you don't even know it's CG, something like what Wicked did when it mixed practical and CG. It was just so good. Then there's times where it is CG, but you can accept it because it's good CG. And then there's CG where it's just bad CG. It's very noticeable, and you're just not gonna like it. And that's what was happening here. I mean, every time there was a green screen, it was super noticeable. CGI characters are super noticeable. A lot of the actual the main characters that you see, there's a lot of CG put into them instead of practical, and it took me out of it, man. It wasn't very polished, and it just looks, just a couple years behind the latest things we've seen with VFX. And then the other thing, outside of the main two, He-Man and Skeletor, those two characters, the rest of the people are kind of just there. It's not like anyone does a particularly bad job. It's just none of them do a really good job. They're not really memorable. Even Idris Elba as Man-at-Arms, when he's first introduced, like he seems like, oh, okay, this is a character I'm going to get behind. But then, when you see him later, he's just totally different. I don't want to spoil anything, but he's totally different, and it doesn't lend itself to being a character that's going to be something you really remember that much. Same with Teela, and then same with all the other masters who are in this movie, who I'm not even going to bother going through because they really don't matter. Oh, and the last thing I want to say, this movie, like I said, it's mainly a comedy. And it's like an adult comedy. Like there are innuendo jokes, situational jokes that like younger kids probably aren't going to get. And there's a lot of dialogue with these jokes and these situations sprinkled in between the action scenes. So I don't know if kids are going to have the attention span to sit there, especially during the first act. Like I said, we spend a lot of time on Earth with him, going on dates, having a job, messing around with his roommate, hunting for his sword, where there's not like a lot of explosions or exciting things happening on screen. So just be wary of that. I didn't really mind it, but I feel like this is something younger audiences might not really like. But yeah, man, let's get to what I liked, because I really liked the direction this movie was taken in. I feel like this is Travis Knight is a director who had action figures and used to just, bang them against each other and make them fight, because that's what this movie really is. You just see characters that you like beating each other up. I mean, again, like I said previously, it's not very good all the time, but you see them just wailing on each other. And then you see the humor that people like, older people like my age, like, millennials and maybe even Gen X, they get these jokes. And you're like, oh, wow, I see what you did there. So in that respect, I feel like he made the movie he wanted to make, and it really does work more often than it doesn't work. Again, it's very, very funny, but he does also manage to work in moments of like true heart there as well. Every He-Man episode, if I remember correctly, they had like a moral at the end of the episode, and there are some actual morals to be drawn here. So, that is something that I also like too. Family and responsibility being some of the themes that I remember. Man-at-Arms says something at the very beginning to Adam, where he gives him the Bruce Wayne line, like, why do we fall so that we can stand back up? Like he says that to him, but in a different way, but essentially the same thing. So, those are cool as well. Oh, and Nicholas Galitzine, or Galitzine, I hope I'm saying it correctly. His He-Man was actually really good. He's my second favorite character in this movie. He looks like He-Man, like he put in the work. So I'm always going to shout that out because I know that's not easy to do. So kudos to him for putting in the work. But his Prince Adam is just like, it's wonderful what they did with him. Like, he's raised on Earth, and I gotta tell you, in Act 1, between the action scene and the Earth scene, I actually liked the Earth scene more because, like I said, the beginning action was just not that great. Seeing this dude just bumble around, well, not bumble around. I mean, he works like an HR as a mediator. So seeing him like just, go around, and like I said, he goes on dates and he talks to his roommates and he's really hunting for this sort of power. It lends itself to just being funny because he's kind of like a fish out of water, even though he's been here for 15 years. But then they also do something interesting where, they show you glimpses of like what that's actually like. Like, think about it. How would you feel if you were the only person who knew this whole other world was real? And as many times as you told people, they just didn't believe you. So, he has a box of all his stuff from Eternia, and you see him going through it. You can see like the sadness run over his face. And I thought that was really cool to building up his character as well. So I really appreciated those moments. But yeah, I saved the best for last, man. The best part of this movie by far is Jared Leto Skeletor. And I really hope this movie does well single handedly because of his performance. I think Jared Leto deserves a win, y'all. I don't mean it as an insult when I say he's like a discount Joker. Not as crazy, but he's definitely eccentric. Like, he will start doing an evil laugh and then get mad at his minions when they aren't on cue to laugh with him. He probably had the most jokes that landed in this movie. And it was in the way he talked and the way he walked. Well, sometimes the way he dressed. Like, you could tell, again, this movie wasn't very serious. And I think they captured that silliness of Skeletor very well. But they also make it so that at the flip of a switch, snap of the fingers, he will just go off and do something so horrific on screen that will just leave your jaw dropped. So that balance of, the comedic crazy, I think they nailed it, and Jared Leto really nailed it. Worth the price of admission for his performance alone. Oh, you know what? There's something else I thought of. It's a little bit of a very minor spoiler, but I'm still going to say it after I give my score so you can get out of here if you don't want to know about it. But I promise you it's super minor. But yeah, this movie, I'd give it a 3.5 out of 5. Like I said, if you're a fan of He-Man, I think you're really going to appreciate all they did, all the little nostalgic nods they made to the original series. Stick around for after credits because there is an after credit scene. If you're a general audience member, I think this movie might be more of like a 3 or a 2.9 to you because it's not going to make you a fan of He-Man. And it's not a unique enough movie for you to be like, wow, that was really good and really worth my time. Just being honest here. Okay, so here's what I wanted to talk about because you guys know how my brain works. If there's a plot point early on that doesn't make sense to me, I can't let it go. So in the first act of this movie, when Adam has to escape because Skeletor's forces are attacking and taking over the world, right? He has the Sword of Power. His mother and the sorceress tell him, hey, we're going to send you away to Earth. Hold on to the Sword of Power. It'll bring you back here when you need it to, right? And they do this because they're saying Earth is going to be the safest place for him where Skeletor's forces can't find him. He loses the sword, finds it when he's an adult. And as soon as he picks up the sword, there's like a tracking mechanism that is sent to Eternia. So both the Masters and Skeletor know, oh, the sword is here. And they basically dimension hop. They dimension hop over to Earth to come get the sword. So my whole thing is, wait a minute. You said he'd be safe on Earth because they couldn't follow him. Like, that's where he'd be safe. But if he had the sword, if he didn't drop it, they would have found him when he was a kid, probably killed him and taken it, right? So, like, what exactly is going on there? Literally something that popped in my head when he picked up the sword as an adult and I saw they could get to Earth that easily. Like, I thought it was a special spell that sent him there, but apparently no, you can just hop in a ship and come here. So don't really know how he was safer here, and that was really sticking out in my head. But that's it, y'all. Appreciate you for listening to me. Till next time, I'm out.